Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Help Is Here podcast. Today I'm going to be talking to you about why I do not install any blockers of any kind when it comes to porn addiction recovery. So my name's Tom. I was in a porn addiction for about 10 years or so, and it got really, really bad. I was looking at more and more progressively novel sexual content, felt a lot of shame, felt a lot of anxiety around it, low confidence, feeling a bit like a fraud in a way, like there was this part of me outward to the rest of the world where they could see me as one person, and then there was this other part of me like behind closed curtains that I'd be engaging in this compulsive behaviour and feeling really, really bad about it. So I went on a mission to solve the porn addiction, and I came across somebody who has a completely different perspective on porn addiction recovery to really anyone else out there in the world. Now, her name is, of course, Mary Paulus. She is my co-host occasionally on this podcast. And we set up a business together, the Beyond Compulsion Academy, about 2 years ago now, because the method worked for me and I wanted to get it out there to more people out there in the world who, like myself, had similar sort of stories with, no FAP and maybe semen retention or going on these streaks and trying all these different things but unable to stop watching porn. Now, in that time of like learning this method and using it personally, I've realised that a lot of the things I tried during those like 10 years of struggle were, and like, I don't want to beat around the bush here, like just to be very direct and straight, most of the stuff I tried during those 10 years was complete, utter bullshit and made the problem way worse than it ever needed to be. And some of the things that I tried would be installing blockers, removing the triggers, getting accountability buddies, journaling all the time, meditating, going to therapy, going to the gym, going on walks, going on runs, being involved in online communities to talk about the problem, and many, many other things. And none of it worked at all. And the biggest problem that I think we have today when it comes to porn addiction recovery is the amount of helpless information, helplessness, like the amount of information that just reinforces what we call neural pathways of helplessness. Basically, when you're in the addiction, the biggest problem you have is that you have these desires and you don't know how to stop, and then you get out of control, and therefore you end up feeling quite out of control, and you over time lose trust for yourself, and you worry about the next urge, you worry about the next time you could potentially relapse. You start to create these different conditions and restrictions in your life to try prevent yourself from having the desires. And you can do that and do that and do that and maybe go on a streak and temporarily stop the behaviour, and then you end up doing the behaviour again, and it just kind of strengthens that neural pathway of helplessness and that neural pathway of like failing with the problem, and really the neural pathway of compulsive desire as well, because obviously you're engaging in the behaviour and that strengthens the neural pathway of compulsivity. So the problem is basically just getting worse and worse. No matter how long the streaks are, you're just intermittently reinforcing the behaviour. That's where I was when Mary found me and said to me, Tom, look, you need to sort your shit out. Well, she didn't say that at all, actually. She was very like kind and empathetic and listened to me a lot. But she called me out on a lot of bullshit because I had certain limiting beliefs, certain misconceptions around porn addiction recovery. I believed a lot of stuff that I'd just been taught online by different like no-fat people and self-improvement people and porn addiction recovery coaches and therapists and neuroscientists and all sorts of just random people on the internet who now, in my opinion, have no idea how to deal with this problem, and they're completely clueless, and they're just making the problem far worse for other people. So I was on a call this morning with a guy who's just joined the Beyond Compulsion Academy. So he's just learned the 5-fact script. Now, the 5-fact script is a tool that we use to enable anyone who wants to stop the behaviour think through the choice in a rational way in the moment of compulsive desire. Because basically, when you have this problem, you've wired your brain to have these compulsive desires. So you are going to have the desire. There's no like getting away from that. Like that's just going to happen. It's in your brain now. So you have these desires, and the problem that you have is how to deal with the desire. As I say, everyone else on the internet pretty much is going to tell you, look, you got to get away from the desire, and they're going to tell you to like distract yourself and find find some friends to socialize with, like call somebody, get the accountability buddies, do some push-ups, whatever, right? So everyone else on the internet tells you get away from the desire. We're some of the only people in the world to say, look, hang on a minute, you're going to have these desires. Compulsive desires refuse to be ignored. We actually want to get into that neural pathway of compulsive desire, connect to it, and start to think through the choice in a rational way. Again, this isn't about like just meditating and like being aware of the sensations and then like labeling different bodily emotions as random things. Like that isn't really useful either. Like it's actually about just thinking through the choice in a logical way, just as you would think through any other very significant critical choice in your life. So it's not about getting all wishy-washy and delving into like certain random sensations in your body and this weird like mindful meditation based approach either. I don't think that works at all. I've tried it, you know, it didn't work for me because the thoughts keep on recurring, and it's the compulsive desire, which is often largely based in the mind, the thoughts that are persisting, which really needs to be dealt with. Very specifically, it's the addicted part of the mind, which needs to be dealt with correctly, because we've got to like stand up to it. It's a little bit like if you had a bully at school and this like bully just persisting to like punch you in the stomach, let's say, you're not going to just be there like, oh, my stomach really hurts here and here, and then like that isn't really going to get you anywhere. Like you're going to want to actually have a conversation with the bully and stand up to the bully and deal with them very directly to start to make a change so that they can have a different perspective on things as well. So anyway, what we want to do is we want to stand up to these desires and really face them directly. And I wanted to talk about this today because I was on the call with a client, as I say, and he's just got his 5-fact script. He's about to start using our method, having gone through the training phases. And he said to me, look, Tom, I've had these blockers in place a while. His partner is actually in control of the blockers. And he said, like, should I keep them in place or should I remove them? And at first I said to him, well, look, what do you think you should do? You know, I just kind of reflected back to him, asked him, what do you think you should do? And we went back and forth a little bit on it. And, you know, we kind of settled on, look, it's your choice, right? Because it is his choice. But I sort of wanted to make this video both for anyone else in the world who wants to like overcome this problem and currently has blockers in place and is continuing to relapse, but also for the client himself, just as like an extra little video on top of our conversation this morning. So hopefully you're listening to this. You know, I would have sent this to you. So listen up, right? Okay. So I think having thought about it a little bit more myself and reflected on this question, I do just want to get across that I believe it is a terrible idea to continue having blockers in place. And the reason for that is you're never going to get to a position of complete self-trust and self-confidence with regards to this problem whilst having some kind of restriction that is preventing you from the opportunity to access the content, because it's the ability to have that as an option in your life available to you and experience the compulsive desires, have the addictive part of the mind, try and get you to engage with all kinds of random bullshit, unanswerable questions, junky thoughts, as we talk about all the time. It's that ability to see all of that in your mind as just indicators of compulsive desire, and then go to your very specific tool, which is, of course, the 5-fact script, to think through the choice in a very rational way and experience that temporary discomfort of the desire without acting on it. That is how you change the neural pathway. And the question this client basically had today was, look, if I give myself full-on access by removing these blockers that he's had in place for a long time, then he's going to have more desires. So like he was kind of thinking about it in terms of, well, this is going to make it harder for myself. But what I just really want to get across is that, sure, maybe short term you have more desires because we're actually going to have that opportunity to act on the desires. Not that it really makes a difference anyway, because let's be honest, you can always find a way around the blockers and access the porn in some other way. So you're still going to have the desires either way, whether you've got these blockers in place or not. But for the long-term success of getting to a position where you have that complete self-trust and confidence, and you can like talk about this openly really with anyone because you're just so beyond it, you need to have access to it and deal with those desires directly. And then you can literally be in any situation and you're going to be good. You would just go to the script if you had the desire, think it through rationally, and continue to change that neural pathway. So that kind of sums up my perspective on it. I haven't had blockers in place for years now, and I would never, ever put blockers back in place because I know that just reinforces neural pathways of helplessness. It's basically me telling myself that I don't trust myself enough to have the option to look at it, which is not a good place to be. And it's also bullshit anyway, because you can always access the porn. There's always a way around the blockers. There's always a way to access porn, and no one can ever take that real access away from you. It may take some more time to sort of access it, but, it's dealing with the desires that matters. It isn't a question of whether you have access or not. It's a question of how do you respond to the wanting so you get the opportunity to change the neural pathways. And the desire isn't a bad thing. And that's really key as well, because people may have the blockers in place thinking that's going to help them have less desires. But really, if you deal with the desires up front, they do lessen over time. And that's how you actually build up that belief that, yeah, I can deal with my own mind and I don't need to have any restrictions or conditions. And you get to have real solid, peace of mind and self-trust, and you get to live with complete integrity and just knowing that you've got this, you're good, you don't really worry about the problem anymore. It's just, okay, I know what to do at all times. So yeah, that's my take on it. Cheers, guys. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully this makes sense to you if you're watching this, to the client that I spoke to this morning. If you would like to understand your mind a little bit better, see if this problem is impacting you, in terms of the porn addiction as a whole, just kind of see where you're up to with things, then I will leave a link below to the compulsion test. Go ahead and click on that link, take the compulsion test, get a score out of 100. It's going to give you a breakdown of how this problem is currently impacting your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.